I love OMs. You love OMs. Everyone loves OMs. Today, we're putting these two to the test against each other. It's the redesigned OOO-28, which, yes, it's an OM body, with the FYM72 from Yairi. Check it out. Hey, you're watching Alamo Music TV. My name's Chris McKee with Alamo Music in San Antonio, Texas. You can find us online at alamomusic.com. If you're new to our channel, subscribe, turn on notifications, like our videos if you'd like to support the channel. You can visit our spring store linked below for custom swag. Check out our podcast, the Fretboard Confessional, wherever you get your podcasts at. It's safe to say that both of these are hits. Martin recently redesigned their entire standard series, harkening back to golden era aesthetics and features, and we have hardly been able to keep any of them in stock. So while I had one, I decided to do a video with a OOO-28. Okay? By the time this video comes out, this one's probably sold and another one's on the way. That's kind of how it's been. Also the same with the Yairi guitars that we get through Alvarez. Built in Japan, they are handmade, and they take a while. That's not an understatement. Take a bit to come in, and they usually sell very, very fast. And so, again, hey, we actually have one. Let's compare these two guitars. They are different. There are slightly different price points and slightly different features going on, but that's kind of what we wanted to accentuate here between these two guitars. Now, if we're honest, you know, this is almost David and Goliath from a manufacturing standpoint, right? Martin invented the steel string acoustic guitar. That's not hyperbole, okay? That's not an overstatement. They invented it. They invented X bracing. They invented the dreadnought. They were the first ones to put electronics in an acoustic guitar. All sorts of firsts. We owe, to a large extent, the modern acoustic guitar to Martin's blueprint that many have followed. So the OOO-28 is one of the most popular guitars that Martin makes in their lineup. We sell a ton of them. Everybody who carries Martin does. And what's not to like? I love this guitar. A OOO or OM body shape. By the way, it's the same body. So if that's ever confused you, know this. In Martin, the difference between a OOO and an OM is scale length and bracing typically. There's a few outliers in the lineup. I'm looking at U15 series. But generally speaking, a OOO is going to be a 24.9-inch scale, and the bracing is going to be slightly thicker than that of an OM by a 1/16 of an inch in the width of the brace. So let's talk about the specs. If you haven't seen any of our videos, I'm not going to do a full rundown. These really got somewhat redesigned. It was a subtle change. So back in 2018 is when everything was reimagined. So you got your vintage tone tops returned to open gear tuners, the inlay that I prefer on the 28 series, and so forth. The new changes for 2025 are golden era bridge, golden era neck carve, slanted bottom of the saddle, golden era bracing. Slight change to the logos happened up there. The volutes a little longer. They're very, very subtle changes. I think the biggest change to these really is with the golden era bracing that's on the new 2025s. And what I've observed playing all of them is that there's kind of a thickness in the mid-range, a little bit fuller and more resonant. Not that the previous guitars weren't, but that's really the big change that's going on with these. So all the stuff that I loved is still here. You've got the open gear tuners. You've got the 28 slotted diamond snowflake inlay, which I prefer to dots. I prefer these on a Martin to Grovers. I don't know why. It's something about the rest of the guitar. Okay, it's kind of like, I don't like big Fender headstocks on Strats, but it looks right on a Jazzmaster. Don't ask me. I don't make the rules of what goes on in my head. But for me, I like that on a Martin. So let's compare it to what's going on with the Yairi. Now, both of these are fairly simply appointed. The Yairi doesn't have the herringbone, that the Martin does, but it has very simple, tasteful lines and Japanese minimalist aesthetics that are going on. You've got the direct coupled ebony bridge, FST6 bracing, so that's a forward shifted hand scalp bracing that's going on in here. It's a spruce top and rosewood body, just like on the Martin. It's an OM, and the scale length on this is 25 inches. So if you're playing along or keeping track at home, 24.9 versus 25. It's a slight difference, but it does matter. It changes the tension when you're at pitch on the strings. It also changes the spacing in the frets. And so you will notice a difference. This is going to have a little bit more volume and a little bit more of a stretch, but it's not 25 and a half. And so it's a nice compromise, really, compared to a full longer scale length guitar like you would typically see. Now, Gotoh 510s, on this, they look right at home. Again, don't come at me. It's just what I like. So you can like what you like. I like what I like. I like the clear pick guard. I like the very thin abalone rosette that's on this guitar, and I like the really, really creamy Adirondack top. And that is probably the biggest difference between these two. Now, yes, this is not nitro finished. It's poly finish. The Martin is nitro finished, which means it has a beautiful luster. And if you look at it wrong in the wrong temperature, it could check or whatever. Nitro, I will say, okay, hey, calm down. Not everyone get their panties in a ruffle. Nitro today is a lot more resilient than it used to be. But compared to poly finishes, it is easier to damage. It will react to certain things. If you don't know about that, go on a camping trip with a nitro finish guitar, spray some DEET to keep the mosquitoes away, and watch what happens to your guitar. It's not nice. I'm not endorsing spraying DEET on a poly finish guitar either, just saying. So the finishes is different, but they both have very thin finishes. That's what really matters. The aesthetics are a little bit different, obviously. This one just screams, like I said, Japanese minimalist handmade guitar. But the big difference is going to be from that top. Why? Because Adirondack is a stiffer species of spruce than Sitka is. And because of that, it has a greater dynamic range from going soft to very loud. You have a higher volume ceiling with an Adirondack top than you do with Sitka spruce. Now, sometimes it requires a little bit more input in order to get up there, and you'll notice that there tends to be a certain aspect to the brightness with Adirondack that's a little different. It can just kind of cut through anything, and that's why the original Martins back in the day were built with Adirondack. Why did we get away from it? Really, it was overforested and it went away until trees grew back up, and now we can use them on guitars again. When you pair spruce and rosewood, it's a classic combination, right? You have really strong bass, you have really nice bell-like chime on the high end, you have a scooped mid-range, and you have overtones. For a singer-songwriter or someone who is by themselves using their guitar as an accompaniment, in my estimation, I tend to love the combination of spruce and rosewood. If you also like to do finger-style guitar, or you're just playing by yourself, the addition of the overtones and richness that rosewood offers, paired with a dynamic range of spruce, for me, really makes it an ideal pairing for the single instrumentalist who's playing solo. So I really, really like them. Now, I mentioned the creaminess of the white on here. And on the Martin, obviously, it's a very yellowed look. Now, that's due to a vintage toner that is added on the standard series. Why did they do that? Because that's what the guitars look like anyway, through a combination of the spruce darkening over time and the lacquer yellowing over time. And so it gives you that classic look. But this, that creamy white, that's typically what Adirondack tends to look like. So Cooper's going to play these two guitars. You can take a listen for yourself, come to your own conclusions. There's going to be some small differences in the way that each of these manufacturers approaches the bracing. And there's going to be a very big difference in the response of the top woods. Check it out. Okay, the playing is over. Lock in your votes in the comments below. So, what did you come away with? What did you think? Which one did you like more? I like them both, honestly, but they are very, very different. That Martin has that vintage tone, and there's a thickness to it. It's a darker sound, and there's a warmer mid-range response. So Rosewood has a scooped mid-range, but a guitar's body and response can kind of focus on frequencies too. And with all of these 2025s with the new bracing, I've noticed there's just kind of an increased thickness in the resonance that comes along with these guitars. I dig it. With the Yairi, everything that you'd expect from a combination of Rosewood and Adirondack in a really well-made guitar. And that is a brightness, articulation, and volume that's kind of almost effortless. Usually with Adirondack, you might have to dig in a little bit, particularly if it's a bigger body guitar, but because of the way this is braced and the fact that it's a smaller OM style, it really doesn't require that much energy to get the top moving. It's physics at the end of the day. You strike the string moves the guitar along. It moves along just fine in this guitar, but the Addy top gives you a lot of volume. It is louder than the Martin in my estimation. It is also brighter than the Martin in my estimation. So you tell me what you thought and which one you like. Now, between these, the Yairi is a little bit more expensive compared to the Martin, but not by much. Most of that comes from the fact that it's got an Addy top, and if you were to try to order this from Martin, first of all, you can't just add an Adirondack top to it. I wish you could, but you'd have to go through the custom route, and doing so adds a lot more than a few $100s to it, which is really the difference we're talking about between these. Neither of these come stock with a pickup, and they both come with hardshell cases. So, all things considered, they're basically right there in price with one another. And I gotta say, it'd be a hard pick if you can only choose one, and I don't know which one I would go with, honestly. Let's talk about playability on them, because the necks are very different. This has the Golden Era version of their neck that they've been doing for a while in the standard series with the low oval profile, high performance taper. That taper's still there. It's a little, how I've described it to people who have called and asked is that there seems to feel like a little bit more meat around the edges, around the curvature of the neck, but it still feels like a really thin, playable neck compared to Martins of the past. The Yairi has a very soft V shape, and you can feel it, and it's not uncomfortable. I don't think the neck has a greater depth than the Martin at all, but because it's a V as opposed to kind of a C or oval shaped neck to it, it's thinner on the sides. It fits in the palm of your hand, and you have less wood as you're, kind of as the neck falls away toward the fretboard. They're both comfortable. They both play fantastic. Ebony fingerboards, ebony bridges, quality materials. This one for sure has a mahogany neck. This one might have a mahogany neck. We don't know, but hard to go wrong with either. Now, let's talk about value. The Yairi is literally a handmade guitar. It's coming in from Japan, and it's, perfect, for lack of a better word. Can't find anything wrong with it inside or out. It's an impeccably well-made guitar. There's a lot of handwork that's still done at Martin. There's a lot of machinery that's utilized as well, and this is a standard series. You could go to a higher cost Martin, like I said, do something custom shop or a special model that has Adirondack. You're going to be paying more for it, probably well above the Yairi. So this is an import from Japan. It's a good value, even if in this case it's technically more expensive than this guitar. They're both great guitars. What a problem to have. So let me know which one you would go with, which one you liked more. Did you hear the differences in the comparison? The Yairis are really hard to get. Not that Martins are easy to get, particularly right now since they've been redone. They're super popular. But these are like hen's teeth, to say something that my grandfather used to say. You can't find them. So I'm glad we finally have something. If you're interested in either of these, I would encourage you to go on our website. If you're watching this at 2 in the morning, lay in bed, and you know, just like me, that you should be asleep because you have to get up early for work tomorrow, before you go to sleep, you can go to our website and buy one right now at alamomusic.com, because while we make sleep, the website doesn't, thankfully. If you need help, though, you can click on the message thing in the bottom right-hand corner. You can message us. You talk to Cooper, myself, or any one of our other staff, and we'll be glad to help you find the guitar to suit your needs. If you're new to our channel, subscribe, turn on notifications, like our videos, keep coming back for more. I will see you next time.